via the open mic feature on the KBLA 1580 app. We want to hear from you and share your story. KBLA Talk 1580, we've got your black.
KBLA Talk 1580, Rest in Power. Chris Jasper of the Isley Brothers making his transition on yesterday after a battle with cancer. Man, it is my honor to welcome into the space this morning a woman who is a multiple entrepreneur and has worked successfully in corporate America for decades. She is also a mama. She's the mother of Erskin Jenkins, who was killed under, and we'll say murky because there is, as usual, there is no transparency here, by law enforcement in Texas in November of 2024. Sharon Jenkins, welcome.
Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning. It's a pleasure to have you on, and I really look forward to having plenty of space here and time to really tell your family story. So let's start off with Erskin Jenkins. Your boy. Let's talk about him before we talk about what happened. Let's bring, Erskin Jenkins into the building, his spirit into the building right now.
Okay. Erskin is a intelligent, beautiful, both inside and out, kind, loving, generous young man who loved helping others, especially the elderly, just a good friend, a good son, grandson, nephew, cousin. He was just an all-around light to everyone that met him. He's always been a very loving son for many, many years. I think since he was 5, it was, for the most part, just the two of us until recent years. But he's always been a young man who was willing to go above and beyond. If he saw an old person having trouble with groceries, even from a very young age, and he was very, very, very small. Always small for his age, but he would always get out and help elderly people with their groceries, big items, sometimes just struggling to even do it himself, but he always knew the importance of community. And it may have been something that he watched and looked at, but he always went above and beyond for others. So that's who Erskin was. Erskin was a generous, loving young man.
Your son was also, you're right, very handsome child. Just seemed, of course, I've only seen pictures. I've never met Erskin Charles Jenkins. but just seems like just from the pictures that he had sort of a lightness about him, a sweetness about him.
Yes, he was very sweet. He is a person that would tell you the truth. He called himself a truth teller. So sometimes that may not have been sweet because sometimes the truth does hurt, but he was definitely a light.
Hey, Miss Jenkins, I'm sweet and I tell the truth and make people mad sometimes.
The truth definitely hurts sometimes, but it gives you an opportunity to evaluate yourself. So you have to appreciate people who tell you the truth, and that is just what we're trying to get at. Not some made up story. We just want to know the truth, and Erskin deserves that. I think the community deserves that, and I need it because I know my son.
So your child Erskin Jenkins grew up in Houston, right?
He grew up in the Woodlands, Texas.
Okay.
It is a suburb of Houston. So we're maybe 45 minutes from Houston.
Okay.
More or less.
And he obviously graduated from high school. And then tell me about the decision. We talked about this off the air, the decision of where he wanted to go to college.
Erskin, when Erskin was very sheltered. And so I didn't know it was his ultimate reason, but Texas Tech was kind of the furthest place that he could go, but he also liked Texas Tech because he did the online program for the K through 12 program. He did that for 2 years. So he wanted to get as far as he thought I would let him go. That was one of the reasons. But the other reason, he really just, he's like, oh. So he told the advisor even. The advisor said, why did you choose tech? He said, well, I like tech. But my mom, I just wanted he wanted to be his own man. And from what I'm understanding, he was being his own man. He was going around ministering to homeless people, feeding homeless people with his little means.
Wow.
He was trying to be his own man, and I'm thankful for that. Those things make me smile.
And Erskin turned 20 in August of last year, right?
Yes. So he turned 20 in August of last year.
So very a young college student.
Yes. Yes.
So when he told you he wanted to go to Texas Tech and get, I know mine went to Canada, so that thing about them wanting to go as far away from mama as possible, I understand it. I don't take it personal. Mm-hmm. It's part of growing up. But what was your response when he said Texas Tech?
I tried to take him to other schools, and we did go visit other schools. But ultimately, I wanted him to be happy. So, and everybody deserves to take their own course. So it wasn't a happy decision for me because it was 8 hours away. But, and I think the university there was good for him. He was very happy. He planned to stay there, and he said he wanted to have a ranch where he could. He was a psychology major, so he wanted to work with kids who had ADHD and things of that magnitude where they could use that kind of therapy instead of medication. So he had big dreams. So, and there's a lot of open land in Lubbock.
So I know we talked off the air. I know you were also a little concerned because it was so rural and a little bit not really culturally what you guys would have been used to, what Erskin would have been used to.
Yeah, it wasn't as culturally diverse as I would have liked because the Woodlands is kind of a melting pot. So people here are very different. As a matter of fact, they call it a bubble. So people are, there's so many people from different backgrounds, different educational levels, different, races, if you will, that, on snow days, I would always call my house the United Nations because nobody there looked the same. They all would just come and eat and enjoy their little lives. But then when you get somewhere and you're dealing with something that you're not accustomed to, you expect things from people that they're not willing to give because they can't see you as a human being. They see you as a stereotype. And I think that that's the problem that my son ran into being in Lubbock, and not necessarily at the university, but if I had known that it was that bad, I would have. If I had known that he would be treated the way he was treated, and I know that he was treated poorly because even after murdering my son, I have been treated poorly. No human regard for life. Just, I would call it wicked behavior because, any decent person would treat a grieving mother very differently than I was treated when I went to Lubbock to find out what happened to my son.
Mm-hmm. And when we come forward, we'll talk about what you found when you went on that journey and what is next. All that is straight ahead. We're talking with Sharon Jenkins, the mother of Erskin Jenkins, and you're listening to KBLA Talk 1580.
A safe place to go loud. A great place for progressive politics. KBLA Talk 1580. Who cares about the black community in Altadena? We do. On Saturday, March 8th at 10 a.m., it's the premiere of Conversation Live, Altadena Rising with James Farr. This new weekly show will explore the deep roots and resilience of Altadena's black community as we track its recovery and reimagine its future. From relief efforts to rebuilding, we're raising up voices, stories, and solutions to build back Black Altadena better and stronger than ever. It's Conversation Live, Altadena Rising with James Farr, every Saturday at 10 a.m. beginning Saturday, March 8th, with an encore presentation, Sundays at noon.
James Farr, the man who is the voice for Black Los Angeles.
At KBLA Talk 1580, we've got your black.
We all hear the radio ads about the IRS. They tell you to be afraid, to be scared, and they try to frighten you into calling. I'm not here to do that. Tax Relief Advocates is different. TRA is here to tell you that if you owe money to the IRS, whether it's $5,000, $50,000, or $500,000, we have a solution. It doesn't matter if you're sitting in your car, at work, or with your kids. No matter where you are, call now.
800-550-9651.
Don't lose hope. TRA can eliminate or reduce what you owe to the IRS.
Generous programs are now available that can give you a fresh start.
Our passion is taxes and helping individuals fix their IRS problems.
We have over 1,000 5-star reviews on Google and an A+ with the Better Business Bureau.
You don't need to be afraid of the IRS any longer. End your tax nightmare today by visiting us online at TRA.com or call
800-550-9651. That's 800-550-9651.
Tax Relief Advocates. Real solutions for real people.
Sometimes I struggle to get to sleep. My body stopped for the day, but my mind is still running. So I take ZzzQuil.
ZzzQuil, the world's #1 sleep aid brand, has a range of non-habit-forming products to fit you and your family's needs. Invest in a great night's sleep for the best you tomorrow.
I'm awake and ready to take on anything.
Better days start with ZzzQuil nights. Explore our products at ZzzQuil.com. Use as directed. Keep out of reach of children.
During tax season, your info travels lots of places you can't control.
W-2 arriving from payroll platform 3.
Everything criminals need to steal your identity is on your W-2.
Last call for accountant and home office, 1 minute.
LifeLock monitors hundreds of millions of data points per second.
Tax preparation data centers with service to IRS. All aboard.
If your identity is stolen, we'll fix it guaranteed, or your money back. Save up to 40% your first year with promo code NEWS. Visit lifelock.com. Terms apply.
Thanks for waking up with Dominique DiPrima on KBLA Talk 1580.
We're talking with Sharon Jenkins, the mother of Erskin Jenkins, a Texas Tech student. I imagine Erskin would have been a sophomore at this time?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, Ms. Jenkins, just by way of sort of setting the scene here, you're a businesswoman, you're an entrepreneur, and not an activist prior to this, right?
No, I'm not an activist. I have, worked with activists in the past, but helping other people,
right,
or doing what I could,
right,
as far as donations and that kind of thing. But I'm not an activist myself. I was an entrepreneur and a motherpreneur, which is probably why my son wanted to go 8 hours away.
Mm-hmm. So, let's go into what happened to Erskin, as far as what we know, because it seems like you still haven't gotten straight answers from what I can tell.
Yes. So right now, we have not been able to obtain unedited body cam footage. We do not have autopsy reports. We do not know the officer's name. We do not have toxicology report. It's my understanding that it's ready, but I had to request it, and the DA has to approve for me to receive an autopsy of my son. When I was originally called, an officer called me and he asked me, was I, the mother of Erskin Charles Jenkins? And of course I said yes. And he said that, he was Officer Coronado. He was with the Lubbock. He was a detective with the Lubbock Sheriff's Department. And so I'm thinking Erskin was in an accident or in some kind of trouble. Or I couldn't imagine why the police would be calling me about my son. And so then he says, there's been a horrible accident, and your son was fatally wounded. And I didn't process that at first because I just couldn't process it. And then he explained to me that Erskin was deceased.
Wow,
I will
sorry.
say that he was probably the most compassionate person that I encountered in this journey out of the police, but since then I've never been able to reach him again. The next person that called me was a Texas Ranger. He told me, I was asking him what happened, and he said, well, what happened was that the police showed up and everybody listened except your son. That was his response to me.
That everybody complied with the police except for your son.
Yes. He didn't say comply. He said listen.
He said everyone listened except your son. And the first guy, to be clear, the first guy that called you said there's been a terrible accident, as if somehow, there was...
He was accidentally killed.
Right, as if there wasn't some kind of error that was made in the shooting. And then the next guy said your son didn't listen. Did he tell
Exactly.
you what happened? Did he say more than that?
He asked me, was my son involved with drugs? Did he drink? He just was asking me all these questions about Erskin, like as if Erskin was the problem. And I know my son. He's not, I understand that they have a job to do, but I also know my son. So then he can't understand me because he didn't want to listen to anything that I had to say. He only wanted to find out incriminating information about my child. And he was very nasty. And I've since told him, and he said that wasn't how he intended to come off, but it was. That is how he came off. He was very nasty on the phone and the first time I met him.
So you really didn't have a clear picture of what had happened. They called you. They told you that your son was was dead
at the hands of the police.
And they did share that the police had killed him. But the first guy said it was an accident. The second guy is looking for incriminating information. You're never able to reach the guy that said it was an accident again.
No.
So then,
because apparently he's not allowed to talk to me because the Texas Rangers are involved. That's how things work here. I didn't know all of these things. Then the next thing was I thought that you were supposed to identify the body of your loved one. Not in Texas. They don't have to let you see your child or whomever it is. Erskin was murdered on November 23rd, and I did not see my son until December 3rd.
Wow.
At the funeral home.
And when you saw him, were you able to were you able to figure out anything? Did anything become more clear to you at that moment?
Well, something made me wonder, like how could he not be compliant? At that moment, it was extremely upsetting because I had been, so many days and just not even been able to lay my eyes on my child. And Erskin was shot through his right hand. So I don't know if he had his hands up because I don't have the autopsy report. So I don't know what the trajectory was, how the bullet hit him in his hand, but he was definitely shot through his hand. So, yeah.
So I'm so sorry, Miss Jenkins. I really am. So then you finally see him, and what's your next move? What do you do next?
At that time, we, had to start preparing for the funeral. But if I may go back to Lubbock, my son's car, he didn't have any of his property. He didn't have, when we were finally, before the funeral home picked him up, they made arrangements with a place in Lubbock to receive him from the Lubbock medical examiner's office, because the place that picked him up was in Houston. All of this is happening the day before Thanksgiving. So we had to stay in Lubbock from the 24th to, I think, the 27th, because they weren't done with my son's autopsy until then. And I didn't want to, just Lord help me, because I took my son there to get an education, and I had to follow a hearse back to bring him home. And so I didn't want to leave him there, not even one day extra, because I felt that I had already did him a disservice leaving him there in the first place. So when we got to that facility where he was being held, we still couldn't see him, but
you said he didn't have any of his stuff, meaning his phone,
he didn't have his phone, he didn't have his car keys, he didn't have his wallet, he didn't have his shoes, he didn't have
his shoes,
his AirPods. All of his property had been taken from him, apparently, because he, I know he had his phone. Why would any man walk around without his wallet? His bank card was used, so I don't know how he would have not had his wallet and any of his items.
So you don't know. I mean, you don't know if they were taken at the scene by the police or taken by the coroner or taken prior to that.
No, the police didn't take his things. I called the ranger. I said, my son doesn't have any of his property. Where's his property? And he said the property that was released was all that he had. And so he had a necklace. He had his house key apparently separate from his car keys, because that was another thing that he didn't have. And his hair ties, which he had long hair, so he had his hair in a bun.
Right, he had locks. Yeah,
that's all he had.
Mm-hmm. So what did you find out? I mean, I know you ended up getting this stuff. How did you get it?
So the mother of the so-called friend who invited him to the party, whom Erskin was a guest in his home, his mother called me maybe, several days after my son's murder in her home. The parents of his friend owned the house, and she called to offer her condolences, and she wanted to pray, which my whole spirit rejected. And so I just asked her, I said, do you have my son's property? And, I can't say that she knew that my son's property was in her possession, but she just went completely silent and asked me for my address. So to me, that's like, you already know you have his things, but you haven't even bothered to try to contact. But she said she had the wrong number, so I don't know how she got the right number.
Sharon Jenkins, mother of Erskin Jenkins. We will continue the conversation when we come forward after news, traffic, and sports on KBLA Talk 1580.
She's reclaiming her time on KBLA Talk 1580. More First Things First with Dominique DiPrima when we come forward.
I'm Bri Wood with 4 Things You Should Know with BIN News. The United Nations condemned Russia for the war in Ukraine and called for the return of occupied territories. The resolution passed on the 3rd anniversary of the invasion, but the U.S. and 17 other countries, including Russia, voted against it. China abstained. The Supreme Court upheld the buffer zone around abortion clinics, maintaining a 25-year-old precedent. They declined to hear challenges from Illinois and New Jersey, with Justices Alito and Thomas dissenting. Pope Francis is slightly improving and resuming some work despite being in critical condition with pneumonia. Lab tests have improved and early signs of mild kidney failure are not concerning. And legendary hip-hop group Wu-Tang Clan says they will kick off their final tour this year. Wu-Tang Forever, the final chamber, will start June 6th in Baltimore. The tour will make stops in 27 cities. Tickets go on sale Friday. Get BIN News on demand 24/7 on the iHeartRadio app.
The CONCACAF Nations League finals arrive at SoFi Stadium March 20th to 23rd. USA versus Panama, followed by Canada versus Mexico. Get your tickets now on Ticketmaster. For more information, visit CONCACAFNationsLeague.com/tickets.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
It's going to be an emotional night tonight for Lakers star Luka Doncic. First game for Doncic against his former team, the Dallas Mavericks, tonight at Crypto.com. Doncic played his first 6 seasons in the NBA with the Mavericks before he was traded to the Lakers on February 8th for Anthony Davis. This will be AD's first game against the Lakers since the trade, although he won't be in a Mavericks uniform. AD will be on the bench in street clothes. He's recovering from a strained abductor muscle. AD has played only 3 quarters for the Mavericks. In 4 games with the Lakers, Doncic is averaging 19 points and 5.8 assists. 7 p.m. tip-off tonight. If you don't have a ticket, you can catch the game live on TNT. The UCLA women's basketball team moved up to number 2 in this week's Associated Press Top 25 poll. Texas is number 1. USC is 4th. UCLA and USC are a combined 51-3. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson. More news, opinions, and conversation when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
This Black History Month, AARP celebrates everyday excellence. The folks who show up, step into their roles, and make a difference in their community and their career. The ones whose stories often go untold, but whose impact is felt in every corner of our society. At AARP, we support everyday excellence with resources for staying competitive in the workforce. Find career resources to support you every day at aarp.org/work.
If you're living with dry age-related macular degeneration or dry AMD, you may be at risk for developing geographic atrophy or GA. GA can be unpredictable and progress rapidly, leading to irreversible vision loss. Now there's something you can do to
slow it down and get it going slower.
Izervay is proven to slow GA progression.
Izervay gets GA going slower.
Izervay or avacincaptad pagel is a prescription eye injection used to treat GA. Don't take it if you have an infection or active swelling in or around your eye. Izervay can cause eye infection, retinal detachment, or increased risk of wet AMD. Izervay may temporarily increase eye pressure. Your vision may be impaired after an eye injection or exam. Don't delay. Ask your doctor about Izervay today.
Izervay gets GA going slower.
Visit Izervay.com. That's IZERVAY.com.
Yeah, yo, come on. Here come the drums.
At KBLA Talk 1580, we fight the power every day.
Yeah, gotta give us what we want. Gotta give us what we need. Hey.
I listen to KBLA and I love the commercials. I know what the commercials mean. I also, if I'm looking and trying to figure something out, I need something to talk to me that might hit me. And it happens on TV because, you know, every time they show a sporting event, they got the pharmaceutical companies back to back telling people how to fix the sickness on the same stuff that they sell them. So we get it.
Yep, we get it too, Chuck D. And that's why at KBLA Talk 1580, we don't black down.
Drop it! Our freedom of speech is freedom of death. We got to fight the powers that be. Fight the power! Fight the power! What you want to do, huh?
KBLA Talk 1580 is thrilled to share that we have been named as a semi-finalist for the coveted American Climate Leadership Awards, honoring our climate work last year. We're also delighted to announce year 2 of our Climate Justice Crusade. This year's $2 million 12-month campaign will link and combat the relationship between climate change and poor health outcomes for African Americans and the poor. Climate inequities have taken a toll with multiple health triggers in the Black community, such as extreme heat and poor air quality, made worse by the recent wildfires. Our work to ensure climate justice and climate equity continues. In the coming weeks and months, you'll be hearing a lot more about our 2025 climate campaign. To learn more about our plans for this year and the companies and organizations supporting us, log on to our website at KBLA1580.com. Caring about the climate, caring about the community, changing the conversation. At KBLA Talk 1580, we've got your black. Find a righteous rage and don't be afraid to say what you see. We're KBLA Talk 1580.
We're talking with Sharon Jenkins, the mother of Erskin Jenkins. Young Erskin, a 20-year-old student at Texas Tech, was shot in Lubbock County at a private residence, which from what we can tell, he was invited to. If you read the headlines, Ms. Jenkins, and there aren't many of them, there was not a lot of coverage of this, but local headlines: Lubbock County Sheriff's deputy kills armed man who threatened others. There is another one saying one dead following Lubbock County Sheriff deputy involved shooting in Wolforth. And yet another one repeating the same headline. And I always find it interesting how, interesting isn't. State report, Lubbock deputy shot man while helping woman escape. How they have a lot to say, many times law enforcement, to the media, but not so much to the families of the loved one that was murdered. Respond to those headlines and what you found to be true based on your own investigation, because it sounds like you almost had to become your own private eye, interviewing Erskin's friends, trying to get his personal effects back from the mom of the home where he was, who didn't even offer them to you when she called you with condolences, and trying to get in contact with other members of law enforcement and putting together a piece of the puzzle. With what you know and what you figured out, respond to those headlines.
So the headlines are completely false. Of course, there was a narrative that was tried to be built towards my son, as I stated, Erskin, first of all, even some of the witnesses that were there at the Friendsgiving, which is supposed to be what it was, that Erskin was invited to. Erskin is a very humble person. He's not a person that, people who came to his services said that I would have never known that Erskin's background was this, and I understand, because that's just not how he was raised. Like he's not going to try to make people feel a certain way, or he needs to appear to be. Everybody's the same for us. That's how I feel, and that's how he felt. So he had no need to.
When you say they
how
wouldn't have known he
lived.
came from this, meaning he came from a middle class or well off family.
Lifestyle.
Yeah, right.
Yes, we're not well off, but that's how people perceive things if they're from a different environment. If that makes sense.
Of course.
So, and I know because I grew up very poor, so I know that. In our community, it's hard not to be one generation from poverty, if that makes sense.
Of course it does.
So
but you also said that law enforcement was shocked when you showed up because they were expecting and perhaps hoping to find someone less resourced. Less
versed. Even some of the things that they were saying about my son, that speech wouldn't be in his vernacular, if you will. He would not be saying, "I'm from the hood." He would never say that. Why would he say that? I don't think I am from what you would call the hood, and I've never said I'm from the hood. What does that even mean? Making up things.
Right.
Who cares? No one cares where you're from, because we're all building who we are. So. Just trying to paint a narrative about my son that wasn't his narrative. So in doing that, then of course the media did the exact same thing. You're trying to paint him as a monster. No one contacted me. They didn't know anything about Erskin. He definitely wasn't holding a hostage. If anything, he was fighting for his life.
Yeah.
And
so
that
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. That's how I contend. Another thing I found interesting, I found that the officer who murdered him was dispatched on or about 10:16. All of the mothers know. So I have been in the mind that my son was murdered at 10:24. And the reason I know that is because at 10:24, I was awakened out of my sleep with a sharp pain to my head. And some witnesses said that the officer was there. They think that the smaller town that they were in called Lubbock County for help, and the sheriff officer was at the scene for 5 minutes, and he had murdered my son.
Wow. So from what you've been able to gather, your son was invited to this Friendsgiving and had been asked to go and pick some people up, and was at this Friendsgiving, and then it escalates, and we don't know what happened. Somebody calls the police. It sounds, I mean, I wasn't there, but I wonder, because you have a child who is raised in a multi-ethnic kind of different environment going into a very small town part of the South that they may not be culturally familiar with. Do you think it's, well, I guess I'm asking you to speculate, but this is my mama instinct saying, was he set up?
I do think that he was set up. I think that, and the reason I think that he was set up is because the friend who invited him told numerous lies about Erskin. So first of all, he offered him to use his car. Erskin is not from a poverty-stricken family. Like I said, not that that matters, because you shouldn't be murdering anybody. You can take other measures. And that's another thing that I found strange with Texas, but, that's a fight that's going to have to be had, and I'll be happy to lead it. So, you know, you show up to a party where you know there's college students. My son was in the need of medical assistance of some kind. And instead of getting that, because the officer couldn't see him as a human being, he was murdered. Several of the kids were said to have been asking for help for him. But I don't, even with that, I don't know why they didn't call an ambulance. But, I mean, who knows?
But who knows? But clearly, you haven't given up. I stated earlier, you know, you were not an activist, but certainly you have been pressed to become one. And I know that you know, you've been working with Black Lives Matter grassroots to try to get some answers here.
Mm-hmm. Yes, they have been extremely helpful and supportive of my son. It doesn't take anybody to be around my family for a very long time to know that Erskin wasn't in a position to where he wasn't well loved, and he knew to make good sound choices, and so I realized that kids have fun because I did. But, you know, at any rate, you know, Lubbock, from what I've been learning about them, it has a police force. They have a climate to where they're accustomed to using excessive force. This is what they do, not just to my son. They had already shot someone else before they showed up to de-escalate whatever was happening inside that house. But like I stated, I think my son was in trouble. The person who invited him to the party called other friends to ask them should he make trouble with Erskin because Erskin was late to pick him up. But since we have Erskin's phone now, we know that Erskin was not late. He texted Erskin and said that he had been let out work early at 11:39, and Erskin was at his job at 11:55. And if he considers that late, then something's wrong with him.
Yeah.
Erskin's not a person that would be late anywhere.
Sharon Jenkins is my guest. Her son, Erskin Jenkins, 20-year-old Texas Tech student, killed by sheriffs in Texas in November, just a few months ago, and she's looking for answers. When we come forward, Ms. Jenkins, I want to find out what we can do. Also, Artist Moore's in the chat saying the house has to have video, but you don't have any video yet. What's next steps? What can we do to help? All that is coming up on KBLA Talk 1580.
More of First Things First with Dominique DiPrima when we come forward.
We ask seniors how to prevent Medicare scams.
My best advice, if you get a phone call, do not talk to the person. These people are well trained. Don't talk to them.
They don't know me. They're just trying to scam me.
Don't be fooled. Hang up. Just hang up.
Never give out your Medicare number.
They're going to get your number to put in a false claim.
If I get a call from someone, I don't pick up the phone. And should I pick up the phone and they ask for information, then I hang up.
How do you detect Medicare fraud?
Just like I check my credit card statements, I check my Medicare statements monthly.
Scammers can get a hold of your number, order medical devices through your account, and you're not even going to know about it if you don't look at your statement.
Check your statement every month.
If you get your statement and you see something that you know you did not have done, you report it.
Call your Senior Medicare Patrol.
To report Medicare fraud, call the Senior Medicare Patrol at 855-613-7080.
Fatherhood includes being present during pregnancy and beyond, supporting your partner, advocating for your baby, and ensuring a healthy birth. Black fathers play a key role in reducing maternal and infant health disparities, and your involvement starts during pregnancy. Join the free AIM Fatherhood program today and learn how to support your partner, advocate for your baby's health, and connect with other fathers committed to healthier births. Visit blackinfantsandfamilies.org/fatherhood to get started.
My mom has decided to learn to paint, and she's good.
My dad's now into creative cuisine, and I've already put on 6 pounds.
Learning new things comes with age.
My mom, she started forgetting my name and what we're talking about.
Forgetting well-known things doesn't. Memory loss may be a sign of Alzheimer's disease. Early detection gives you and your loved one time to plan for the future. Learn the warning signs of Alzheimer's at 10signs.org. Brought to you by the Alzheimer's Association and the Ad Council.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580, connecting you with services and solutions. Worried about eviction? You have rights, and Stay Housed LA can help. Stay Housed LA is a partnership between LA County, the City of Los Angeles, and local service providers. From Lancaster to Long Beach, we're here to help you with tenant education workshops, legal clinics, free legal services for eligible tenants, and online resources about tenant protection laws. Don't face eviction alone. Call our hotline at 1-888-694-0040. That's 1-888-694-0040. Or visit stayhousedla.org. Stay Housed LA, keeping Los Angeles residents in their homes. Stay Housed LA, your rights, your home, our community. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
The conversation continues right now with Dominique DiPrima on First Things First.
We're talking with Sharon Jenkins, the mother of Erskin Jenkins, a young 20-year-old college student who was killed by police in Texas November of last year, and right around the Thanksgiving holiday. You are still seeking answers, as you mentioned at the beginning, still don't have the name of the officer who killed your child, do not have body cam video. Artist Moore says there must be video in the house. I'm sure you've tried that. Security video.
They apparently there wasn't cameras at the house. So I don't think that it was a very secure location.
So what's next? I mean, you know, obviously you're still doing your own private investigating. I know that you're working with Black Lives Matter grassroots trying to demand the release of the body cam footage, right? What else is happening? What are other next steps?
So I've been, you know, like you said, doing my own private investigating, but I have hired private investigators as well. It's extremely concerning. It seems to be that there's some corruption going on in the town, actually, and so I've hired an attorney as well. So we're just trying to navigate through the chaos, honestly. Some days you have to kind of take a break because as a mother, it's extremely overwhelming.
I can't even imagine. I mean, Ms. Jenkins, I really can't even imagine. My heart breaks for you. This is your only child, right?
Yes, he's my only child, and I feel like I did him a disservice because you're raising your children to go out in the world and be good citizens, and everybody's not doing that. You know, so
he went
I feel
where
like my son was lured to the party. They're not even trying to investigate if something happened to him in that party, which is infuriating for me. Try my best not to interfere, but it would be nice to get updates from the Texas Rangers office. You know, I have also been told that that's really not their job. Their only job is to see if the officer was justified or not in the shooting. And, you know, a lot of things need to be changed because that's not right. You know, if you're going to say that, you know, my son was upset or fighting or whatever, if you're going to say that, then you have to say what led up to it. You have to tell that my son was incapacitated. He couldn't have did very much for himself. So, like I said, the officer showed up. My son needed medical attention, and they murdered him. And so as a mother, I am very angry. I can't even describe the level of anger because I raised my son right. He's been nurtured and loved. He's well educated, very articulate. There's no way that you wouldn't have been able to understand him unless he was incapacitated. And I have proof that he was. And so
You mean against his will?
Have to do something. Yes, against his will, because he doesn't drink. My son's not a drinker or a drugger. I understand that this is the narrative that is often painted about brown boys, but my son is a good kid, and even the ones who you can't when you are the demon himself, I find it very odd that you are the ultimate judge of everybody. Awful. So I'm just it's very hard to talk about what happened to my son and not be able to control my anger, because we all know what we do. We all know what we're capable of as a person. And so then you know how you raised your son. So to get under your skin, of course. And then the news didn't have the decency to spell his name correctly. It's just they're a lot.
Ms. Jenkins, you the one thing that you keep saying that it hurts my heart is that you did him a disservice. He wanted to go to the school that he chose, and you honored his wishes. I don't know how we prepare our children to deal with environments that could contain racism or the illusion, the lie of white supremacy, or whatever conditions where people don't see them as human. And, you know, I just wanted to say that because you keep saying it, and I just don't know how we prepare our children for that. But what can we do? We just have
frustrating. It's exhausting. It's frustrating. It's exhausting.
Yes.
You know, it's exhausting. It's exhausting to even have to say that my son was articulate, because people that probably hurt him, and I'm not saying that he was physically beaten. It was, if he wasn't incapacitated, he would have definitely been able to defend himself.
Yeah, you said he was a black belt.
Erskin was a black belt in karate, and I'm not sure if he got it back yet, but I know that he had a certificate to send his little hands off to be registered.
Mm.
So it would take a little small entourage. So the person who said, should I have a problem with him? He's very small in stature. So I just assumed that maybe that's all I can do. He tried to have a problem with him, and Erskin was the problem. And so oftentimes people who start things and can't finish it, then they want to just take you out by calling the police, because everybody, even people who don't look like us, know that the police dealing with him would be different than dealing with them. And I'll just say that most of the kids there were Hispanic. So it wasn't yeah.
Ms. Jenkins, I'm real quickly here. We're actually almost out of time. How can we help? Is there a website? Is there a GoFundMe? I know we can go to blmgrassroots.org and find out what they're doing. Is there something else you want to share?
I think that pressure on the Lubbock County District Attorney's Office would be a good start. I think that calling the local congressman there, the mayor, the city council would be a good start. You know, calling for transparency. Because, again, I just want to know the truth. I can't find out the truth if you give me everything redacted. I want to know what happened to my baby. I want to know who did what, including but not limited to the officer. So I want them to investigate what happened to my son prior to the police being called. I think that's important.
I think that's the least that they could
happening.
do. It's the least they could do,
That's
Mister.
the least they could do. You murdered him, so help me clear up his name, because he's definitely not some criminal.
Sharon Jenkins, I thank you for spending the hour with us and sharing your story and your son's story. And I hope that you'll keep in touch with me, because we want to continue to support your quest for at least the truth, the very least.
Yes, I want the truth, and if there was criminal activity, I want everyone prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. That's what I want.
Ms. Sharon Jenkins, I want that as well, and I'm praying for you, and my mic is your mic.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it. And like I said, if people can start calling them, if you can help me to fight, I'd appreciate it. I do appreciate it.
Indeed. Tavis Smiley is up next. He's got another jam-packed show for you today. I'm going to speak this Malcolm X quote because it reminds me of Ms. Jenkins today. He says the truth is on the side of the oppressed. Join me tomorrow for another great show. We're talking money on a Wealth Building Wednesday. Until then, one love.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.
I'm Bree Wood with 4 Things You Should Know with BIN News. The United Nations condemned Russia for the war in Ukraine and called for the return of occupied territory